How's it going, everybody? Wayne here. Today we have a lot of 8 games that we'll be checking out, and this lot of games actually came in a lot of 34, and there wasn't any duplicates in that lot, but I'm going to split this lot up into multiple episodes so the episode isn't too long. So in reality, I'm having a hard time keeping up with the videos because the NES library is growing incredibly fast. And the crazy thing is, for the NES I have just under 200 games, but I've already passed the N64 complete library in price. But I did have a bit of a head start because back in 2018 I started collecting complete in box games, the games that I really wanted to play and some of the more rare and mint ones. And I don't think it'll be too long before I actually pass up the amount of games that the N64 library has. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, why does it take 2 years for me to put together a whole N64 library, and it seems like I'm going to blow right past that with these. And then I thought about it, I was like, well, there's only 296 games on the N64, and finding lots was hard to do because you'd always find the duplicates, so you'd pass up on a lot of lots. With the NES library, there's 677 licensed games, so you're not likely to run into duplicates as often. So let's check out what new games we got for the collection. And the first game we have up is Kabuki Quantum Fighter. Kabuki Quantum Fighter was developed by Human Entertainment and published by HAL Laboratory. It released for the NES in 1991. Kabuki Quantum Fighter is an action platformer. The computer that protects the world has a virus and it's mutating into different forms. The only way to stop the virus is to use the new untested machine that transforms the human mind into binary data. 25-year-old Colonel Scott O'Connor takes on the task and enters the computer. Once in the computer, Scott takes on the form of a Kabuki fighter. He starts getting attacked by enemies, which are the virus in the computer. Your main weapon in the game is your hair, but you get other weapons in each level to add to your arsenal. The gameplay is a lot of fun. You can climb walls and jump from platform to platform while hanging. You also start out with memory chips, which is another weapon. The cool thing about the memory chips is that you can exchange them for energy when fighting bosses. So if your health gets low while fighting a boss, you can save yourself from losing a life. The game will challenge you and you'll have to memorize levels to advance. There are a lot of surprises that take your energy that are unpredictable. 3 deaths and you lose a life, 3 lives and it's game over. You go back all the way to the beginning of the game. The graphics are okay, but the sprites don't have a lot of detail. The controls are good and Kabuki is easy to handle. The music is fast-paced and perfect for the gameplay, but it's nothing memorable. Overall, if you're a fan of action platformers, Kabuki Quantum Fighter is worth picking up. It's also not too hard of a game to find and it's reasonably priced. And Kabuki Quantum Fighter is game number 17 for the collection. The next game we have up is Anticipation. Anticipation was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo. It released for the NES in 1988. Anticipation is Nintendo's first board game. You can play up to 4 players. The first player is a pair of shoes, the second player a trumpet, the third player is a teddy, and the fourth is ice cream. The game doesn't allow you to choose your piece, so if you don't want to be a stank pair of high heels, you better give up that first controller. There are 4 difficulty levels: easy, medium, hard, and very hard. The game has the same concept despite the difficulty levels. You start on a board with 4 different colored squares. Each square represents a category. When you land on a square, a picture puzzle pops up and you have to guess what it is. In easy mode, you get clues such as dots on the screen to help you anticipate what the drawing will be, and spaces to help you guess what the word is. Once you guess all 4 colors correctly, you advance to the next round. After 3 rounds, you become the winner. When you get to the very hard difficulty level, the game becomes near impossible. There are no spaces to determine how many words there are or how big words will be. There's no category and no dots to help you predict what the drawing is. To top things off, the computer guesses just after a few lines are drawn. Like, how was I supposed to know this was a stroller? I would have guessed man boobs. The only way to beat the computer is when it gets the answer wrong. It gives hints by putting letters in spaces for the words. I was dreading putting this game in to review it, but in all honesty, Anticipation would be a fun game with a group of friends. It's not a game you'd really want to play by yourself against the computer though. Anticipation is game number 18 for the collection. And the next game we have up is Godzilla. Godzilla was developed by Compile and published by Toho. It released for the NES in 1989. Godzilla is a turn-based action game. You start off the game on a grid with two monsters, Godzilla and Mothra. Your goal is to make it across the map and make it to the next planet. Each grid on the map is a level. Some levels are best played with Godzilla, others are better with Mothra. However, you'll have to redo the levels as each monster as you advance. Godzilla can only travel a couple grids, but Mothra can travel a further distance. There are also other monsters you can run into and fight along the way. The monsters are boring and super annoying. If they get you into a corner, and they will, they'll repeatedly hit you, making it impossible to do any moves. The levels are the same if you travel too fast through them and don't destroy enough enemies on the way. The enemies will build up on the screen and corner you into a death trap, making you want to go Godzilla on your NES controller. Once you make it through all the repetitive levels and you get to the end, you make it to the next planet. To me, the game isn't very fun. It suffers from terrible slowdown, making it hard to maneuver. To top it off, the sprites start glitching on the screen, making it hard to see where they are. The controls suck, moving across the gridded levels is blocky. It's hard telling whether you should punch or kick some enemies, and it just feels sluggish. The music also slows down with the gameplay. I probably won't be pulling this game off the shelf to play it again in a while. Godzilla is game number 19 for the NES Complete in Box library. Next up we have Deadly Towers. Deadly Towers was developed by Leonard Tamtex and published by Broderbund. It released on the NES in 1987. Deadly Towers is an action role-playing game. I'm just going to get to the point. This game is bad. You start off as a blue cartoon-looking character with horns. Your weapon is a sword. Not a sword that you swing, a sword that you throw. The worst part about the weapon is that if you miss an enemy, you have to wait until it leaves the screen before you can throw another one. Speaking of enemies, they are lame. Most of them are just shapes with color moving around. If you're anywhere near a ledge when one hits you, you'll fall off and have to start back at the beginning. The game is a massive maze. There are so many directions to go and everything looks the same, so you're bound to get lost. The objective is to climb 7 towers, find a bell at the top of each one, and burn them in a magical flame. The game is so bad I didn't even have the patience to make it to the first tower. The music is repetitive and annoying. The gameplay is frustrating, and the enemies take 1,000 hits each. No matter how far you progress, if you die, you go back to the beginning of the stage. The manual I got with the game had a bunch of passwords from the previous owner in it. I input one of the codes and guess what? I started off right at the beginning. The only difference was the enemies were faster and more annoying than before. You have to be an incredibly patient person to play through this game. I don't recommend it. Deadly Towers is game number 20 for the NES Complete in Box Quest. The next game we have up is Top Gun. Top Gun was developed and published by Konami and flew onto store shelves in 1987. In Top Gun, you pilot an F-14 Tomcat. You first start out picking one of 3 missiles. The smallest missile has the least amount of damage, but you can carry the most of them. The largest missile packs the biggest punch, but you have a very limited number of them. After you take off, you start your first mission. You have an infinite amount of cannon fire as you battle enemies. Enemies will come up from behind you or from in front of you. Some even lock onto you. The plane only goes up, down, left, or right during the missions. You cannot control the speed, so a lot of the planes speed right past you. If you survive the level, you'll start the landing sequence. If you've ever played Top Gun, you know this is the most difficult part of the game. It's so easy to fall short or overshoot the runway. The manual says the airspeed needs to be at 288 and your altitude needs to be at 200. This all has to be perfectly timed. The music in the game is actually pretty good and matches the movie well. The controls are difficult to master, especially the landing sequence. The gameplay is okay, but nothing spectacular, and the graphics are average. Top Gun isn't a terrible game, but it's very challenging. One day I want to try to master the landing sequence and be able to land every time. And Top Gun is game number 21 for the NES library. Next up we have Wizards and Warriors 2 Iron Sword. Iron Sword was developed by Zippo Games and published by Acclaim. It jumped onto store shelves in 1989. Iron Sword is an action platformer for the NES. I have mixed feelings about this game. I like the idea of the game. You go around hunting for different things to advance. You collect gems and you can buy keys and health. and you can find items in chests that will help you on your quest. But that's where the fun stops. The gameplay wasn't executed well. Loads of enemies constantly bombard you from all directions. Your sword has no range, making it impossible to fight them all off. And this nonsense doesn't stop. It's just constant chaos. A lot of gems and health are hidden. Most of them are hidden in invisible rooms that you can't see unless you accidentally run into them. The terrain is annoying. If you miss a jump, you can fall all the way to the bottom of the level. Mix that with the enemies bombarding you and knocking you down makes it an incredibly frustrating experience. The graphics are decent. At least you have actual enemies bombarding you rather than colored shapes like in Deadly Towers. The music is decent as well. This could have been a really fun game if they would have done a few things different. It'll be a while before I revisit this game. Wizards & Warriors 2 Iron Sword is game number 22 for the collection. The next game we have up is Robin Hood Prince of Thieves. Robin Hood was developed by Sculptured Software and published by Virgin Games. It released for the NES in 1991. Robin Hood is an action RPG based off the movie. You start off in a jail cell. You have an option menu that allows you to search and take things. There is a sword in the room and you grab it to free an addition to your band. From there you search the room, find a key, and eventually escape the prison. The B button swings the sword. However, you'll get into skirmishes with large groups of enemies, and the graphics in the game completely change along with the controls. For example, the A button is used to swing the sword in this mode. There is also another fighting mode where you can get into a duel. As you make your way through the levels, you consistently get stuck on scenery as you walk around. Some of the levels are dark, making this even more frequent and annoying. You have a second menu that you can pull up to change your weapon or use items you picked up. The game is short, which is good because there isn't a way to save your progress. If you lose 3 lives, you get a game over and have to start over from the first level. You can make it far enough in the game to where you won't want to start from the beginning if you get a game over. I'm not a huge fan of these types of games, but I don't think this is a great representation of this style of gameplay. And Robin Hood is game number 23 for the NES Complete in Box Quest. And the final game that we have today from the lot, we won't be adding to the counter because the game came sealed, and that game is Bases Loaded 2. And after I finish reviewing the rest of the games in the lot, we'll add them onto the shelf. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe. I'll be collecting the entire NES library, complete in box, right here on the show. Also make sure to leave a thumbs up for Kabuki Quantum Fighter. Until next time, I'm Wayne, and thanks for watching.